Alright, I'm going to be doing a trade review of a recent put swing trade I took. So this is a daily chart of the ES, and I think I'm using weekly profiles on here. But what I'm looking at here, just for some overall context before we get farther down into it, is we've been in a pretty strong uptrend for several months at this point, and there was all-time highs put in around 5,700. And then for the next, let's see, all three. So this is from about 710-ish. So for about a month, we put in a solid down move, and then we retraced almost all the way, but we didn't quite break the this point of control here. At least that's what I was looking at mostly. The idea for this trade started with this right here, seeing the let me go and zoom in. Seeing this high node here, and then we came up to it and initially rejected. We're testing the higher end. This happens on every time scale, whether it's daily or a second. So whenever you come up to this high node here, this point of control, we tested it and rejected. We broke through initially, and my bet was that this was going to be a fake out and will continue lower, forming a range here. So that's really what I'm looking at for the entry, and then the overall context is I think we're just going to form a downward range at the off of the all-time highs. So I'll go ahead and switch over to this next chart here. This is the same area, just on a 20 range chart. This is a 20 point range, not ticks. So each of these profiles is 2 days worth, and what we're looking at here is the pink line is the point of control of those 2 days. Then we have these white lines. Let me do a hand. There we go. All right. Then we have these white lines, which is the value area, and these red dashed lines are showing valleys or low volume areas, which is pretty cool that you can have that displayed for you. That's something I pay attention to, so it's just nice to have them drawn across the screen. I don't have to pull up my crosshair and measure it. Yeah, so what I'm looking at here is the 21st. Let me go back to the crosshair, actually. Alright, so this is the 21st, and this is the end of the day. I enter this trade on the 22nd at 9:44, and we'll go ahead and come over to the 30-second chart to look at that. Actually, let me zoom way out on here before we keep going. So what we were looking at before, come on. Alright, so this is what we were looking at before, right? And what I'm seeing mainly is we come up to this point of control and test it and reject, and then we test above it again, and we started coming back down. So that's two pretty good. It's multiple rejections off this area. I mean, if you really want to count it, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I would say there's about 4 major rejections off of this all-time highs. And then to the downside, we have a lot of. Here, let's zoom in a bit more. Okay, to the downside, we have a kind of like we have this kind of thin support here. I wouldn't consider this major at all, but it is something that we could break below, then reject off of. So that kind of gives me a safe entry up here. Like this is you could kind of think of this as a micro range. If I'm trading a 3-second chart, it's about the same size, right, on the screen at least. So this is a micro range. Then when it tests higher, I was able to get my put in around up here. I'll show it, later. But What I'm looking for then is a test through this huge low value area or low volume area, and I'm pretty bearish on the market overall right now, but I do think at least after having a nearly a month of run up, we're going to get a pretty major retracement. I think 40% 40 to 60% isn't unreasonable, so that would be down to 420s, 400s, but for me the area was really 5500 at the bottom of this gap here. Yeah, so let's go ahead and look at this 30-second chart now. Let's see here. This is the 21st. Let me zoom out. Alright, so this is the 21st. Market ends here. So this is the end of the session on the 21st. Alt H. Alright, now we're getting into the next day. And we have a pretty good, run up, and right at the open, so there's the open. I'll go ahead and zoom in a bit. Okay, I'll switch over real quick as well. So at this point, we're having a pretty major rejection off of 5,660, that area, right? So what I'm looking at on here is, I'll zoom in again. What I'm looking at here is these two candles, really, these three or so. Every time, you can't tell right now necessarily just because it's static, right? But when you were watching it, every time it would come up, it would kind of walk up slowly, and then a huge amount of volume would come in and push it down very fast. And then it happened again, then it happened again, and then it happened again, right? So at this point, you're kind of building another range. So you have these lows here, and you're forming a downward channel. This is the top line. Here, I mean, I can draw on here. Yeah, so I mean, you're kind of forming a downward channel, and this is just basic like support and resistance. I think we're gonna break this area, and then if we do, we have this area not too much farther, and then past that, you come over here. The major thing that I was looking for was this again. I'm gonna come over here and delete all these drawings. Sure, I can do it faster. Cool. I got in at, let me see, I think it was like 9:44. Just double check. Alright, yeah, so I got in at 9:45, and okay. So we have a huge push up, right? And it's followed by an equally huge push down. At this point, I got in somewhere around here, the break of the lows. I did not get in up here, right? I wanted some amount of confirmation that we're probably done with this area. This is pretty standard auction market theory. You come up, you're forming a range, you extended it higher, you extended it lower, you came up to the top side, came down to the bottom side. It extended a little bit, but not really. You're just still in this range. Then you have a very big extension to the upside, followed by a very big extension to the downside. That's kind of showing the end of this range here. So I got in around this area at the breaks. I don't have, so I got in for the puts for $4.50 each. Then if I go ahead and just zoom out a little bit, it worked pretty much right away, which is nice. It did come back up, but this actually wasn't, this brought me back to break even. I think I guess the implied volatility started picking up a little bit, just because of these bigger moves. I think if I was down anything, it was maybe like $20 at this point. But yeah, for the rest of the day, it pretty much worked out immediately, which is really nice, of course. So let's go and zoom out a good bit. Whenever I see stuff like this, or you have it just did so well. I think at this point I was up like $1,000 or something. No, not nothing, right? So at that point, you might be considering taking it all off, but you're gonna get these waves, right? When you zoom way in, you have these, waves up and down. Then when you zoom out, you have the same thing. So there's no reason, at least in my opinion, for this trade for me to be worried about, what looks like about a 50%, probably a little less of a retracement. Especially because once we broke this range, we came up, we tested, the mid of it, and rejected, came down. Now we're rejecting. So here's the first range. We broke it. We came up, we tested the mid here, and it rejected. And now it's coming down, and then the next range kind of rejects here. And the next one, here, let me do that better. The next one is kind of like that. So, I mean, you can really see that it's being pushed downward on a long time frame basis. And that's also evident by the huge just dumps that it's having. So it'll range around for a little bit, it'll just fuck around, do nothing. And then it just, on a huge amount of volume, goes to the next area. So this looks good to me, and I'm not going to worry too much about having some retracement up to a previous area, which I'm still good with. So let me go here. We'll just go to the end of the day here. So it's about the end of the day. Come over to this chart. This is what it's looking like. We came down to the first low value area, and we tested it a few times. Now we're just kind of fucking around. That's all good, and we'll keep going. We're not gonna, I'm not gonna show the 30-second chart for the rest of this because it's not that important. I stayed in the trade, The next day we have, actually I'll show it here. Okay, the next day we had a huge rip up, again testing these highs. And I wasn't too worried about that because, in my opinion, getting these huge, quick moves up on not a lot of liquidity. So that the markets, when it does this, it's either a huge amount of volume or it's the liquidity's kind of thinned up a bit. So whenever you have these big pushes, they look bad, but it's not on a, at least this one, this one wasn't on a huge amount of liquidity, so I'm kind of okay with it. It seems more to me like a fake out. I mean, it was, right, with hindsight, but that's what I was thinking at the time as well. I was like, well, this happens on the small time frame all the time. You get your nice auction market theory plan, and then it gets manipulated a little bit. That's just standard on every time frame. It just takes a lot more contracts to do it on this time frame. So this kind of, I'll just zoom way out. Here, I will switch over. I know it tested my entry many times. It really stuck around in my area for a while. This trade worked out initially, like right off the bat, and it then became basically a break-even trade for several days. That's fine. I didn't want to. My entry was good. I'm not upset about that at all. So I wanted to make sure I got in where I did. I figured it. I didn't expect this to happen, of course. I didn't think it would chop around here for so many days, but it's not. I don't know. I wasn't worried about it really. Keep going over here. We have. So this was a pretty big push through. Let me make sure I'm on the right screen. Yeah. Okay. So this was a pretty this was just a huge dump through all of this range. Really, it broke the bottom here. It tested. We'll do all three. It tested the mid of this gap. And then the next day, it came through the rest of it. My exits. Let me pull those up real quick. So my first exit was on the 3rd. Alt 3 there. So my first exit was on the 3rd at 2:18 p.m. So here's the 3rd. And here is, it was one of these 2 bars. We'll pull up the 30-second chart. Actually, I closed out 2 contracts here. So let me go and do that on the 30-second. It'll just make more sense. Cool. This is 3rd. We come down here. This is 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. This is where I closed 2 contracts in this area. What I'm looking at over here is it's just been a huge down move the entire day. Fuck. Here. Okay. So it's just been a huge straight down move the entire day, and we tested this node here. This, in my opinion, could have been another rejection up, and it could have just, the entire trade idea could have been wrong at that point. Or the rest of it, at least, could have been wrong. So I took out 2 contracts right here, right before the gap, in case it doesn't fill it. So that was good. Then my next ones were... Oh, and then, so I took, that was 3 contracts. No, that was 2. I took 2 off at one at 2:18, one at 2:22, and the next one at 3:30. So the one at 3:30 was, I held it a little bit longer, and then I saw it dump a bit more. I got out, down this area, so around 55.30s. The first contract I got out for 7:30. The next one was 7:36. That third one was for 7:63. So now I have 2 more left, and we'll just keep going. So we came up here, we tested the lows. So that's a nice rejection. That looks good to me. And then I got out of the next ones on the 6th at 10:27 and 11:26. So this is what we're looking at now. This is where it's at now. I don't know what it's going to do from here, but let me see, 10:27 and 11:26. So all right, so this is basically what it looked like. In the morning, we had a move upwards, testing kind of the mid of this area, really. And then once that fails, we got a breakdown all the way through this gap. And we're actually, at this point, we're mostly lower than it, right? So we've broken through this gap. We're coming down. We're now testing this this node here. So that's where I want to scale out, because there's a lot of volume in here. And that was the move I was looking for initially. These puts expired on the 13th, or they would have expired on the 13th. So I didn't really want to hold this trade too much longer. This is the main move I was looking for. At this point, I feel like it wouldn't be unreasonable to have a major retracement before continuing lower, if that's what's to happen. But I really just wanted to capture the first, leg or 2 of this move. Yeah, so I scaled out the first one here, and then the next one was like 1130 or something. Yeah, so it continued a little bit lower. Now we're looking at the basically the lows of this range. I mean this profile here and this one are basically connected, right? So it's probably a bit larger. So we got out at the bottom of this as well. So now I'm totally out of the position at this point. On those last two contracts, let me pull it up. Then on those last two contracts, I made $12.95 and $15.90. So the entire position at this point, I made $28.60 or something around that. So it was really good. I only risked like $500. If we were to at some point have, we have this range, we tested it. If it started, if it broke above this point and then came back down, I can't, here I can probably show it on here better. Okay. This is the 23rd. Oh wait, no, I want to go to the 22nd. Okay, cool. Yeah, so if we were to have broken above this point at any time, and then made a lower high above this area, I would get out. So it wouldn't be a huge loss, maybe a couple $100. That's fine with me. And then, let's see. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't have much else to say about this. It worked out nicely. I like taking these trades a lot. They just don't come around very very often. The last time I took an option swing trade was like several months ago. Yeah, that's it. I think at this point, I mean, I'm pretty bearish on the market. I think we're going to be breaking these lows at some point. But I wouldn't be surprised if before then we had a lot of retracing and just fucking around. So yeah, that's it pretty much. Basically, I basically Michael Burried it. Pretty cool. Worked out well. That's it. See ya.